Welcome back to the Adobe After Effects course. Continuing on the basic section, this is importing a clip and we're going to continue that trend straight away with there's never only one way to do something in After Effects. So we've created our composition. We scored 3 different ways, and now that we actually have a composition, we want to get some media in here. At the moment it's just a black background, and yes, not too interesting. We want to actually have some clips in there, so I'm actually going to load up the After Effects course file, and I got my clip here. Okay, so there's actually multiple ways to do that. Now the easiest way in my opinion is to actually click hold on your file and drag and drop it. Now it takes a second sometimes, but overall once you drag and drop it, it will actually import into the media manager right here, and then just like that we have our clip. However, as I said before, there's never only one way to do something. So let's go ahead and just delete that, and we can go up here to file, down to import, go to file, and just like that we can now on our own intuition navigate to the After Effects course file or wherever the file might be on your computer, and go ahead and select our clip that we want to import and click import, and just like that it has imported to our media manager right here. We talked about earlier, there's all the different media that you can import, whether it be graphic, composition, or etc. It will all pop up here, and now if we wanted to actually drag that into our composition, we could click and hold and drag that over and drop it into our composition. And also, as well as we see here, it's looking relatively low quality. So if we wanted to increase the quality at any time, we can increase the resolution playback quality, because this isn't the final quality, this is only the quality that we see in here. We have a clip that is the first clip that we have added to our timeline, and just like that right there is how to import a clip into Adobe After Effects, of course in 2 different ways. We'll come back in a second with starting a composition from media to match the specifications. See you. Hi, welcome back to the Adobe After Effects course. We're continuing on the basic section. This is starting a new composition from media. So as you can see here, we have imported our clip to our media manager, and then we drag and drop that into our timeline. So we have started to get into this at this point. Now if we wanted to match the project settings, as you can see here, click comp 1, we notice that we made a 920 by 1080p sequence that was 30 frames per second, and also it was 30 seconds. So if we actually go up and click the clip itself, we can start seeing the specifications. If we see here, this clip is 16 seconds and 29 milliseconds, and it's 29.97 frames per second. So even though we have imported it here into the composition, it's not the actual size or any of the specifications of our comp 1. Now we could of course right click and go to composition settings and change this comp to match that clip. However, a much simpler way to do it is actually just to create a composition straight out of the particular clip that we want. So the way we do that is, for example, let's go delete comp 1 and try to make a new one. So we would select our clip and we will click and drag to here to the start new composition button. And what it does is it instantly creates a new composition that entirely matches whatever clip we drag and drop down to the start new composition button. However, because of course it matches every aspect of the clip that we have created and we want to stay organized, let's go ahead and right click it, go to composition settings, and then change the name to comp 1. And remember to always make this start right here, start time code to 0, because it'd be easier to sort of have everything on the timeline start with 0. So that right there is starting new composition through media. Overall, this is an important section because this is how I personally create new compositions whenever I'm making a new project, because it's the fastest way to do it. Instead of going up here to composition and new composition and manually fill in all the settings, you just simply drag and drop the clip into the new composition and instantly creates a composition based on the exact specifications of the clip that you are working with. So that's it. See you on the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to the Adobe After Effect course. Continuing on the basic section, this is going to be a tools and shortcut section. We're gonna break down some of the most important tools and some of the most important shortcuts in After Effects. So we're gonna start with the tools, and the tools section is all up here. So at any time you're able to change the tools, and we're gonna be getting into the shortcuts next, which will be able to let you a little bit quicker to maneuver between the different tools, but more or less we're gonna start kind of chronologically. So first off, you've got a selection tool. This is the standard tool that you'd use, for example, move clips around. Next, you've got the actual hand tool. So for example, say we wanted to just drag the screen around but not actually move the clip out of the composition, we will be using a hand tool. Next up is the zoom tool. Now the zoom tool is kinda useful, but it's also maybe a little bit slower than perhaps going down here, because you know the zoom tool at any time you can click and zoom into the specific area, for example, which is kinda cool too. Next tool is the rotate tool right here. It changes the cursor to this, and we can click and hold a clip and we can actually rotate the clip around. Or for example, if we had a shape on the screen or a graphic, this could be useful to maybe change the rotation of it, and overall rotation is a very straightforward tool. Camera is used later on when we're actually getting 3D stuff. And next most important tool was the rectangle tool. It says rectangle right here, but if we click and hold, we have all these other shapes that we can create. Now there's multiple different types of shapes. You've got shapes and you've got masks. So at the moment, we notice that we are selecting a clip. So if we were to use this tool and we were to click and hold, what it does is actually crops out a section of our clip and it creates a mask. And we've got a whole masking section coming up next, which is going to be dive into this. However, that's only a fact if we're selecting a clip. So at any time if you find yourself accidentally cropping into your clip, it's definitely just because you're accidentally selecting the particular clip itself. And all you have to do is actually just go deselect the clip, and then you're able to drag and drop with the actual shape. Now, pen tool, this right here is another form of the shape tool. So for example, if we're selecting our clip right here and we want to create a shape on an existing object, for example, let's try highlight the paper right here. We could draw a rough outline of it and join it up, and just like that, we will create a mask which crops in and seal off a specific section. Next up is a super useful tool, something you'll be using a lot, which is the actual text tool. So if we click on this, we can actually have this different cursor pops up, and if we click the screen, we notice that if we want to actually type something, we get this sort of text layer that's been created here. We can actually type, for example, let's say joy. Select them by going over here to customize it, for example, changing the color, but again, we're going to extensively get to that in the upcoming section. However, just like the actual shape tool, we have another option of the tool. Just click and hold it, we can actually get a horizontal or a vertical text. Now let's go delete the text and make a vertical one. We could click and hold and then click the vertical text. Just go ahead and type in joy, and now just like that, we have had some text that actually comes down the screen instead of actually going horizontally. Now, the brush tool is not necessary at the moment. This will actually come into play a little bit more later on when we're actually tweaking different particular areas. There is also the clone stamp tool, not super necessary at the moment, and of course the eraser tool, which will come into play as we go. The next most interesting one is the roto brush tool. This particular one, we have an entire section coming up, and it's going to get super intricate. But essentially, if we double click a layer, the rotoscope tool is how to sort of, with AI, be able to instantly highlight a specific section of the actual clip. See, we just drag over this paper and the AI figures that out, that right here it's a specific object and it highlights it for us. So instead of having to use a mask tool to actually highlight it manually, we're able to do that automatically, but that's a little bit too complex for now. We'll get back into that later. So arguably, in my opinion, the most important shortcut in the entire program is Ctrl S. And yes, this is safe. Saving is something you got to get in the habit of doing a project in After Effects. If you have worked for hours on a project, because when I was a beginner and I wasn't in the habit of pressing Ctrl S every few minutes, and you know, when the program crashed in the middle of our work or anything that might lose your project, it'd be such a pain in the ass because we have to start from the top again. Or in another word, we lost all the progress that we have made. But if you're pressing Ctrl S at all times, you're able to save your project and not to worry if something happens. Next up is the command for the selection tool. So let's say for example we were in the text tool and we wanted to jump back to the selection tool. Just go ahead and press V, and just like that it jumped. Next is to jump to the hand tool by just pressing letter H, and boom, it jumps over the hand tool. Next up is the zoom tool. That's another very straightforward one. We're just gonna press Z and it jumps to the zoom tool. Next up is rotate tool. By pressing W, you can rotate your clip whatever you like in a very simple way. Next is gonna be how to jump to the shape tool. So that one will be the letter Q and it jumps. And of course, if we're selecting our clip and we were to draw something, it just make a mask. So if we wanted to make a shape on the clip, just click for example right here to deselect the clip and go ahead and make the shape. And the next one is our pencil tool right here by pressing G, and now you can do whatever you like with the pencil tool. However, there are some shortcuts that apply down here. For example, L, that opens up the audio levels of the clip. You can tweak the audio level, so at the moment this is 0 dBs, which is just a normal volume. If we were to scale it up by clicking and dragging, we could scale it up 12 times, or we could scale it down to -192 dBs. The interesting one is when we click L twice, it pops up this audio waveform that I personally use very often. Now, if we wanted to trim the clip, or in another word, splitting the clip, just go select the clip and press Ctrl-Shift-D, and there you have your clip separated in 2 layers. Also, if you wanted to duplicate this clip, just go press Ctrl-D, and just like that, literally duplicates the layer. This could be very useful if you're working with your project in the future. Now let's go back to the clip on the timeline and use the shortcuts that we have there. To bring opacity, just press T. This right here, as you can see, if we bring the opacity down to 0, we have nothing. To 50, just short of half of it, and to 100 is to full. Press R to open rotation. You can tweak the rotation of your clip right here, as well as a rotation tool that we have covered earlier, and press P to open the position of the clip on the composition. So that is the final shortcut that we have in this video, and by all means there's plenty more shortcuts coming up next. Thanks for watching. Coming up next with an exercise to further confirm everything that we have learned. See you there. Hi guys, welcome back to the Adobe After Effects course. We're continuing on the basic section. This is going to be an exercise. So what we're gonna do is to import and edit an audio and video sequence. So pretty much we're going to be importing audio file for the first time and sort of combine it with the video. Now let's go to the file resources that we have here. We're going to drag and drop this audio file to the media manager in Adobe After Effects. So we've got the sequence and the video earlier, and as well as the audio we just imported. Now what we want to do is to drag and drop this audio into our sequence right here, and let's actually go into the timeline and press double L to the audio file, and just like that we actually have the waveform here. So let's start playing it, and we're gonna use some of the shortcuts to chop into these clips and actually make it sync up to the beat. So let's go to the timeline and find the right beat to chop the clip, and by the way I'm pressing Alt and scroll up to sort of zoom in into our timeline, and Alt scroll down to zoom out. This right here looks like a good area to chop on, so select our clip and just go over maybe like 2 seconds and press Ctrl-Shift-D to chop the clip. Delete this one right here, bring this over here, and we can press Shift while dragging it to sort of lock it to the clip that we want. Now we're actually gonna do the same thing for the next 4 chops. And what we have done is essentially just trying to sync it to the beat every few seconds. Now let's just press spacebar and play it. So now that we have done that right there together, you should be following through exactly what I've done, and as always press Ctrl S to save the project. Always remember that. Just try to do this without even thinking of it, because once again, losing your projects after spending hours and hours working on it will be such a nightmare, right? And now let's go back to the beginning. We can actually go ahead and press spacebar to play it, and just like that, we have got this very obvious sync to the beat effect. And just like that, we actually have made a clip that sync up to the beat by using the audio waveform as a reference. And what we have done is essentially just trying to sync it to the beat every few seconds. And now let's go add some text at the end of the video just to make it look more interesting. And don't forget the shortcut to the text tool is Ctrl T and then press the screen and just type, for example, learning made simple. Go change the color to white and you can a little bit adjust the text and we are done. So that right there was an exercise. We're going to keep cracking on in a second with the Adobe After Effects course, Learning Made Simple.